You're tuned in to 90.7 WCLH, Wilkes University Radio. That is Night Ranger off of their 7 Wishes release with Sentimental Street. And now I have the honor of welcoming to the show Keagy, drummer and vocalist of Night Ranger. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing great. Kendall, how are you?
I'm great. Always doing great when I get to interview some of my favorite artists, you, of course, being included.
Oh, very nice. Thank you so much for that compliment. I appreciate it.
You're on tour. You've been touring. I see you have recently played 5 sold-out shows in Japan, and now you're on a break before you head out back in the beginning of November, correct?
That's right. That's right. And it's a nice, needed break right now because we've been going since March or April. So nice to have a break. Think about stuff, what's going on at home,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we're looking, it's like after a couple of weeks you start to get antsy, so, especially when you're doing, this much work on the road. So you just want to keep it going because, that's what it's about.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad you guys got a break, but I'm also glad you will be in our area right here in Wilkes-Barre on November 24th at the Kirby Center. Has it been a while since you guys have been around the Wilkes-Barre Scranton area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's been a few years. I can't remember the last time, though, because it's all running together, Kendall, as you well know.
Yeah.
It's running together. But it should be fun. I mean, we always come, with 100% energy, and I think it's just going to be one of those nights, where we're just going to make stuff up sometimes, and some surprises. We got a new record out too, so some of that maybe, and coming from Japan, it made us rehearse more songs from the new album, so we're going to be, trying to stick those in here and there. But
I look forward to it. I've been playing in rotation on Metal Mondays. I typically am in the studio on Metal Mondays, but I have a hard rock and classic metal show, and I'm always playing and promoting Night Ranger past and present. And
nice.
I'm very glad to be seeing Night Ranger for the first time here in Wilkes-Barre on November 24th. Last time you guys were kind of in the area, it was at the Hummel's Wharf Fire Company, and at that point I wasn't yet 21, and it was very depressing. But now that I'm
I remember that place.
Yeah.
Love that place.
Now that
What a fun show.
Yeah, most people my age, I think, are interested in turning 21 due to alcohol and stuff like that. But now I just don't have to worry about not being able to get into concerts.
I love it. I mean, that's the thing too. When I was very young, and it was frustrating for me that I couldn't go because some of the clubs around Los Angeles had some of the greatest music in the middle '60s. I mean, it was just like I was hearing about all this music and I couldn't go, and it was like, I couldn't figure it out. I'd go to the back in the alleyways and stick my head on the wall just so I could hear what was going on.
Definitely.
Well, cool, man.
Yeah, speaking of that show here in Wilkes-Barre, opening up for you will be Loverboy, and I'm kind of wondering how you feel about that kind of bill, how you compare and contrast a Night Ranger to a Loverboy.
Well, I mean, I think that some of our first shows, were with Loverboy playing in really big places back in the 80s. We've played with them a lot, and we're very good friends with all those guys. I mean, we just have a great time with Mike and Matt and everybody. I mean, we just get along with them so well, so we look forward to seeing them. and like I said, we played with them so much, so we fit very well together. Our music, So yeah, I'm looking forward to that because it's going to be a great night of like just a bunch of songs that you probably know all the lyrics and just every guitar lick. It's going to be great.
Yeah, because looking at it in my perspective, I'm more of a Night Ranger fan than Loverboy, but you guys definitely had some of the same elements, and be it the rock band with keyboards and Loverboy
Sure.
was probably more popular, and then you guys were more of a hard rock. And kind of like anecdotal evidence here, but like my parents and like their generation, it seems like back in the day, most music, even if it was popular music, was accepted, and it seems like popular music today for the younger people is sometimes a turnoff to maybe hard rock fans. Do you notice the fans of that generation, be it 30 to 50, are more likely to like all bands coming out of that genre and time?
I think that's to be said for every generation. Every generation wants to have their own bands and needs to have their own bands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's natural. That's got to happen. You know, there's got to be every 10 years you got to switch. You know, as new generation comes in, new music. And I love it. I embrace it. I mean, so yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, that generation is going to want to embrace their music, or and whatever they feel is theirs. You know, so they own it.
Cool. And I like to know that I could also go back to other generations and like all that music as well. So once again, on the phone now with Kelly Keagy of Night Ranger, drummer and vocalist. Yeah, have the new album. It came out in March called Don't Let Up. And I've always loved about Night Ranger that you and Jack Blades take turns with vocal duties. So my question, how do you generally, throughout Night Ranger's career, go about picking who sings which song, and specifically on this latest release, Don't Let Up?
Yeah, I mean, on every album, if you go back like the last 3 or 4 years, or throughout 3 or 4 albums, maybe I'll be singing more on the record, or Jack will be singing more, or we'll be splitting songs. We like doing that a lot. So it just, how it comes about is we do it just naturally. We just like, we'll each take a shot at it sometimes, or if the lyric is a certain way and it seems like Jack, would fit it because you can't sing a lyric if you don't believe it, so that'll be, or not believe it, but if you don't really feel it, if it's not something that you would say or something that would come out of your mouth, and so that's how we decide. It's like who has a good feel for it, who can sing this, how does it sound like us, so that's how we go about doing it. And a lot of times it's just right off the cuff while we're doing the demos. We're just like, you go in and try this. And then it'll be like, okay, you sound good singing that verse, but how about if I sing the bridge and then we sing together on the chorus, and stuff like that. So that makes for interesting listening to me. It's nice to have that the two different perspectives vocally. I think it's a plus for the band.
And definitely, I would assume different styles, like you said, also influence this. Like the song Day and Night off of Don't Let Up. And I know you take the lead. Jack comes in with some background vocals. So would you say that the mood of the music also plays a big role in who sings?
Sure. I mean, sometimes, not always though, because I know that over our history, I usually sing ballads,
Mm-hmm.
but what happened on this album and the album before is I was pushing Jack, like, because Jack doesn't, he doesn't get that side of it sometimes. I mean, so I just on this album, I just said, why don't you go out and sing this, like Nothing Left for Yesterday? Why don't you just take that? I mean, it's because the chorus is huge, and it's edgy. So, but it's still a ballad in the front end of it. So you know what I'm saying? So it was nice to have him do something that was a little different from what he normally does, But so it just depends. We're trying to push each other to do different stuff,
Of course. And throughout the record, Don't Let Up, I see a lot of different styles, whether it be rhythm and blues. There's some synthesizers in there that you use that kind of were reminiscent of back in the day, like the song Comfort Me. And, of course, the ballads, like you mentioned, Nothing Left of Yesterday. So definitely a wide variety of things there. on Don't Let Up. So speaking of this album just coming out in 2017, you, as an artist, has any other albums by other artists been prevalent to you? Like, what albums from this year have you been liking the most?
You know, I have to be honest with you. I haven't heard a lot of the music that's been coming out lately, except for, some of the bands from our generation have released. But I know Kip Winger, have released an album. I know Mark Slaughter has released music. So Journey in the last few years. So it's those are the things that I tend to focus on. Just like what you were talking about, certain generations that kind of stick to their own music. That's where I'm at. I kind of, in a lot of ways, I listen to the older music that I grew up with from the 60s and 70s, Hendrix and the Cream and, all that kind of stuff, I was just talking with somebody about that, too, about, the influences that some of those bands had, which was some jazz in there, R&B, and, everything was mixed back then, and so I tend to lean towards that,
And I know you mentioned that some of your influences from the 60s and 70s, whether it be Cream, and I know you've mentioned Ringo Starr from the Beatles from previous interviews in terms of your singing and drumming. How do you relate that to you being also a big fan of people that came out of the same time as a Night Ranger? I know you've worked with artists such as Reb Beach and Kip Winger, as you mentioned, you like his stuff, and Doug Pinnick. Yep. Do you feel there was a big change there between your early influences and then how guys who worked with you in the 80s and up until now, is there much of a difference there?
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of times we do like to step out of what we normally do in our own bands and do some different stuff. So, I mean, I kind of welcome that. I kind of look at that like, we get a chance to play something, a little bit left of center that we'd normally do. So, but I think that we're all influenced by, the music around us, whether it's older or it's brand new, whatever's coming out. I mean, I think that some of the most impressive stuff is like this, songwriting wise. Maybe not musically, but songwriting is like, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga. All that stuff is really super, super creative. And so, those things hit you too. Even if you're in a rock band from the 80s, those things are impressive and incredibly, creative. And so we tend to latch on to stuff like that.
So once again, Kelly Keagy on the phone from Night Ranger. So back to the album Don't Let Up. You've also been a primary writer and vocalist in Night Ranger, not just the drummer. But considering that you are mainly a drummer, when you go to write a song, what is that process? Do you write it maybe on an acoustic guitar? I hear a lot of artists take that direction.
Absolutely. That's my first instrument that I would grab. So, yeah, I would tend to do that. That's kind of how I've written anything that I've been involved with in the past, too. As I just grab an acoustic guitar and just start to have a melody, stream out. I just try to get a phrase or a melody for a chorus or a verse, and so the guitar is just basically just the accompaniment, on the key. But yeah, that's basically the way we get started with it.
And realizing that I would assume most songs are written on the guitar, and I've heard people like Michelangelo Badia say they work with the piano to write songs because all the notes are laid out right in front of you, whether it be the octaves. But considering that you are a drummer, I wondered, have you ever written a song based around a drum beat, maybe a drum beat or a fill led to a song, or even maybe made a song take another direction? Has that ever happened?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would sometimes sit down and just be goofing off and just doing some improvisation while practicing and come up with a pattern and go, yeah, this might be good to base a song off of, you know. So yeah, that's happened, but usually that's probably happened maybe 3 or 4 times in my life. But usually it's sitting down with an acoustic guitar and finding that key and then having that melody that that's been gnawing at you for a couple of days, and you sit down and you find it on the acoustic guitar and you bust it out and record it, you know. So that's usually how it happened. But I think that like there's a song called 7 Wishes from our third album, was the same name, and there's a pattern that I started that song with, and I think that pattern, which was basically like a march, it was like a drum cadence that I came up with, and we just started jamming off of that. And then Jack actually played that riff. There's a riff in the chorus on the piano. He went and found it like it was like interesting that he did that. I came up with a drum pattern that was just out of the air, and he found it on piano and played it from there. I mean, which is kind of unusual because he plays guitar, usually.
Yeah, and that's kind of like exactly what I was looking for, like wondering, because usually the drums and the bass, the rhythm section, they're more focused in the back, but I know I've been at the drum set a couple times and thought, like, maybe this is where the song should start, and I think that's very interesting that the title track to 7 Wishes with the toms and everything started.
It's interesting how that comes about, because sometimes inspiration just hits you in different areas.
Once again, you're listening to 90.7 WCLH in Wilkes-Barre. This is Wilkes University Radio, and I am still on the phone with Keagy of Night Ranger, drummer and vocalist. And once again, if you're just tuning in, Night Ranger will be down the street here from Wilkes University at the Kirby Center on November 24th. So, Kelly,
Loverboy.
And Loverboy, of course. And what do you generally like to do, you and Night Ranger, while you're also in town playing a show?
We love to go out and look at, antique stuff. We're like all about going to stores and finding, old treasures. So you might see us out doing that one day. Like we usually try and get in town a day or two at a time, and So that's one thing we like to do. We like to go and look at old stuff.
Well, Kelly, I'll just let you know the doors are open here at the Carambella's Media Center. We have a brand new radio station with state-of-the-art stuff, and we're right down the street from the Kirby Center. And I don't know if you guys are interested in art at all, but we have the Sordoni Art Gallery located in the same building, and we have an exhibit featuring original works of Andy Warhol. I don't know if you guys are interested in art at all either. It's not
Absolutely.
too old.
Well, I'm going to make sure that I see that, because that sounds incredible.
Definitely. And also here at the station, as I mentioned before, I am more of a hard rock and metal person. Typically during this time on WCLH, we're playing hip-hop music, but I'm glad to bring some hard rock and classic metal in with Night Ranger and yourself, Kelly. And also for Metal Mondays, that's a staple here at the station where we play metal all day. I come into, I've started a show at 9 p.m. Eastern on Mondays where I play an album in its entirety, and I'm definitely planning on playing a Night Ranger album closer to the date of the show in promotion and to celebrate, because I'll be very excited for the show. So just before before we wrap up, I want to get your opinion on an album that I should play, but I want to ask you yourself, Kelly, if maybe there's an album that has been overlooked or an album you feel should be celebrated in terms of you guys coming to the Kirby Center.
You mean one of our albums?
Yeah, one of your albums. Maybe even Don't Let Up. Like, what would you... I know some artists have, like, a favorite album that they've done. I'm not sure if you have one.
There's one called... it was like 3 albums ago called Somewhere in California. There's some really good songs on there. And there's also kind of a different album, more of a modern take on an album called 8. It was like a Night Ranger our eighth album, and it had some really kind of cool songs on there, different, a little bit different, and so that might be one you could check out too.
Okay, so 8 and Somewhere in California. I'll definitely pick one of those, and I will be talking to another member of Night Ranger, so I've heard, before that show, so we'll get some insight from them on the release too. So
Great.
once again, thank you, Kelly, for calling in once again the show here in Wilkes-Barre on November 24th. And before I let you go, Kelly, can you pick a song off of your latest release, Don't Let Up, to take us out?
Yeah, let me think about that. I think that there's definitely a lot of songs on here that I would do, but I would think that ballad, man. I would think that ballad that Jack sings would be a great song to kind of go out, because it ends the album. So it's a good way to get out of it. So.
Okay, so once again, Kelly Keagy, everyone, thank you, Kelly, for calling. And we'll be, I appreciate it. So we'll be wrapping it up with the last track off of Night Ranger's latest release, Don't Let Up. It is the ballad with Nothing Left of Yesterday. Keep it locked right here on 90.7 WCLH Wilkes University Radio with Night Ranger.